the DoIt video webinars. I'm Antti at LUT University, and with me is Annika Wolff, a computer-human interaction researcher, also from LUT University, and visiting guest from Italian National Research Laboratories, Giacomo Capellini, who is doing data analysis work on environmental data. And today's topic is how to work on data and how to communicate data in an understandable manner, with especially focus on young social entrepreneurs. Could you introduce the topic a little bit, Annika, and tell about your work?
So my work in general focuses on data literacy and how we can develop better approaches to engage people with data and better tools to support them in analysing and using data. And a lot of my work has been with young people and focusing on data literacy initiatives in schools. So within the DoIt project, I was particularly focusing on how the students of the DoIt project could use data to innovate new products and services to be more sustainable, and how they could do it in a creative way, so not focusing necessarily on just apps, but how they could develop tangible data visualizations and how they could develop new wearable devices and these types of more creative approaches to solving these problems.
All right, and you, Giacomo, have been working with adults trying to or you could say even experts trying to communicate with their data, but not having technical background. What you would say that are the big challenges with the tools from a non-expert's point of view?
The main challenge from a non-expert point of view is the amount of data that you have to handle when actually you have to work with databases or also images or just tables that are actually way larger than the thing that you will commonly able to move with the normal tools that everybody used to know. And so you have to use different tools and different techniques to actually split, merge, and transform your data to do the data extraction you need and to perform the data visualization for actually explaining what that data is about.
Right. So what's your perspective on this? Earlier when we chatted before the interview, you told that the children are very creative.
I think that children are very open to new ideas, and if you set them a challenge to use the data in a creative way, they will get stuck in. They're very willing to use craft materials because they're used to doing this in their daily lives. And I think this is a very good time to start to teach them how they can apply that in more technical scenarios and to bridge this gap. I think that the challenge is when people get older is they lose this ability to play, and they lose they gain a sense of seriousness about these things, and it somehow inhibits their approach.
Yeah. Well, what's your perspective on trying to enable the youth to use some kind of tools to work with the data, or take this one step further? You have also been working on co-design workshops where they do something similar to this. I think there's two approaches when working with anyone who's a non-expert, so whether it's youth or an adult who isn't an expert with data. And one approach is in the formal teaching, so how you can develop programs of instruction that can help them learn how to ask questions from data, how to interrogate data, perform particular types of analysis and these things. And then the other approach, which is something which I focus on also, and especially with the older people that maybe don't have time or the ability to enter formal instruction, is how we can actually make data more accessible, so we can design and curate data and create tools for using data that make it actually easier for people even with lower data literacy, and maybe scaffold informally their learning but not make it some part of formal instruction. So I think these two approaches are very important when working with these kind of non-experts in data skills. Yeah. Before we move on, what kind of advice you would give to a facilitator that is just starting to work with the DoIt approach and has to work with both data and non-experts? What kind of advice would you give to such a facilitator?
I think when it's starting out, I think the approach shouldn't be so much on the low-level skills, but it should really be on the higher-level competencies. So really focusing on how you can sort of collect data and then ask questions from it and be creative. And it doesn't even have to be realistic, but it can be really far-reaching, futuristic scenarios. I think this kind of creative thinking and creative way of thinking with data is the first step, not the last step. And that from that, when you start to understand what these questions are and you get enthusiastic about finding something out, then you can go and find the kinds of tools and things that you want. So this, I think, when starting out, this would be my advice, is to make it fun, make it creative, make it far thinking, and don't get too bogged down in the technical details.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, in some of my work, it's easy to just to try to teach programming instead of what to do with it.
Yes.
But in your work, you have been trying to enable non-experts to communicate with the data, and you have had some success with one or two tools. So could you give us an example where this really succeeded?
Oh, yeah, exactly. The button I've tried to push to actually make my data visualization something new to my colleagues is just adding interactivity to the graphs. And adding interactivity to the graphs means that you are not actually delivering just a point of view of your data, but you're just giving a default view, but you let also doing some filtering and some selection of a group of data and let the graph change dynamically, and that gives you not just one point of view, but a different point of view according to what you would like to see from that data. So it's actually easier for a non-expert into the field like me to deliver not just one beautiful graph on the data according to what I expect to be the best point of view, but just give them the filter and the selection tools required to select and deliver the most interesting point of view of the data. And so it's actually moving some competencies and some requirements from an expert on data visualization that could be me, that knows how to move the tools to create the interactive graphs, to the domain expert on the field. And that makes things easier when actually handling or dipping into the technical level, because to me, enabling one more filter, one more selection is way easier than figuring out which is the default filter or default selection of the data. So it's moving the problem to the expert, and that's I think the good step.
Yeah. And you had one experience, good experience with one tool that allowed the non-experts to also build their own dashboard. Which one was that?
Okay, the latest successful stories I had is with actually a product from Google, and it's a Google Data Studio that is a new product from Google that actually lets you create infographics, and that automatically updates by looking at Google spreadsheet data. So I know that a lot of people knows how to use Google spreadsheets, but they just use it as a replacement for other very famous spreadsheet programs. And the point is that Google also has some linked programs that can read the data in the spreadsheets and let you configure the filters and selector you need with an output visualization that, and you can set up an auto refreshing timer that changes the graph if the underlying data changes live. So by linking a spreadsheet that is shared between the expert in domain and they know how to use it with a tool that actually enables you to create a dynamic interface with selectors and filters that automatically refreshes when the underlying data changes. It was like a game changer because I can just step back and say, okay, a programmer is not needed here as soon as you already know how to fill your spreadsheets, and you just have to understand how this newest front end works. So as soon as you understand how the two programs are linked, it's actually a new possibility to create updating, refreshing graphs.
Yeah, that's a challenge I have also faced, that a lot of current businesses and people, they are very spreadsheet centric, and those really limit your thinking. But you had some good experience with the youth where you were able to think like beyond web pages and spreadsheets. Like what kind of outcomes did you have in these workshops?
So in terms of data visualizations, we had some very nice 3D examples of data visualizations. Some of them looked like standard visualizations, for example, graphs in 3D. But some of them looked quite different, so people were trying to do infographics using plasticine, for example, which was very interesting. And then in terms of the outputs of the whole innovation cycle, when we were asking them to imagine how they could use technology and data to solve these sustainability challenges, we had people coming up with ideas of smart socks, smart bins, but also wearable devices that would help to monitor who was putting litter into the bins, and also other wearable technologies where people could monitor and reward people for sustainable behaviours that they saw through some kind of loyalty scheme that was linked to shopping and businesses in the local area. So the creativity was very diverse, but also we had some app-based approaches, but even within the app-based approaches, they tended to take a very creative view and focus quite a lot on the sort of different data visualizations and interfaces, and could be quite creative in those as well.
That sounds really quite fantastic. So, is there anything more you'd like to comment on, or any single short idea you'd like to give us to our future facilitators who might be watching this stream?
I think the one really important thing is when doing these activities and working with data and challenges is to make it really local and relevant to the children, and that's the way that you'll get their interest and get them involved. So not solving challenges that are too global in scale, but something that really means something to them and that they're interested in.
How about you, Giacomo, about people who, what kind of advice would you give to people who are trying to enable non-experts to work with the data?
I will say that the first step is to understand that when you are actually creating a visualization of your data, you have also think about how to share the data that you have used to create the graphs. And actually, they are not two different problems. The tools are heading into that direction. So the newest tools basically are asking you to present both the declaration on how to visualize your data, and altogether the data itself, all packed inside one service that you can use inside like web pages. So the newest graphs that you will see probably into web services are actually data plus declaration on how to visualize it, but you can get them both already split and use the very same data to play with it and work on it, and also create a newer visualization for it.
Okay, thanks Giacomo and Annika. I think this will be very helpful for our future facilitators, and of course thanks to the audience.
Thank you, Antti.
Thank you.